A single candle burns inside the Tower of London. Its flame flickers against the stone, trembling as though it too is afraid of the morning. Outside, the night is heavy and windless. The city sleeps, but inside that narrow cell, time itself seems to pause, caught between two worlds. There, on the cold floor, kneels Anne Boleyn, once Queen of England, now prisoner of her husband's will. Her hands rest on an open Bible, her fingers tracing words she has already memorized. The candlelight catches the faint shimmer of tears she no longer tries to hide. The walls around her are gray, cracked, ancient. She has lived in palaces lined with gold, in rooms filled with laughter and music. But this silence, is where her life has led her. Anne breathes slowly. Her thoughts drift like ashes through memory. She remembers her coronation, the crown placed upon her dark hair, the cheers echoing through the streets. She remembers his eyes, King Henry's eyes, when they once burned for her alone. Back then, she believed love could move empires. Now she knows it can destroy them. The candle sputters. She leans closer, watching it fight to stay alive. It's strange, she thinks, how something so small can hold back so much darkness. Her ladies-in-waiting sit nearby, silent and pale. They have wept for hours, but Anne no longer cries. She has gone beyond tears. There is only stillness now, a calm that feels almost holy. She lifts her head and says softly, "Do not grieve for me. I go to a better place." Her voice does not shake. It carries a kind of peace that frightens even those who love her. Beyond her cell, the tower sleeps under moonlight. The ravens on the walls stir and call to one another, their wings brushing the cold air. Somewhere in the distance, a guard's footsteps echo, a dull rhythm marking the hours until dawn. Inside, Anne picks up her quill. She writes slowly, carefully, as though each letter might be her last. To her daughter, Elizabeth, she tells her to be brave, to seek knowledge, to trust in God. She does not write of the crown, or the court, or the cruel game that took her life. Instead, she writes of love, of courage, of hope. Her words are simple, but they carry the weight of a heart that refuses to die bitter. As the night deepens, Anne kneels again. The air grows colder, the candles shorter. Each flicker of flame paints her face in gold and shadow. She begins to pray, not for rescue, not for revenge, but for forgiveness. She prays for her enemies, those who lied and conspired against her. She prays for her brother, executed only days ago. And finally, she prays for him, the king who once swore eternal love and then signed her death. Her lips move silently, but her heart speaks loud enough for heaven to hear. Somewhere in the palace across the river, Henry cannot sleep. He tells himself he is right, that the kingdom is safer without her. But her voice haunts him. The memory of her laughter, her defiance, her faith, it will not fade. Even the fire in his room seems to whisper her name. But here, in the tower, Anne's heart is already beyond this world. The fear that once clung to her has melted into light. The closer dawn comes, the calmer she becomes. She asks for her maid to bring another candle. When it is lit, she places it beside the first. Two flames now, side by side, dancing together in the still air. Like two souls, she murmurs, parting, yet forever bound. The candlelight softens. Her breathing slows. Her eyes drift toward the window, where the first hint of dawn brushes the sky. A pale blue glow creeps across the stone floor, touching her gown, her hands, her Bible. She closes her eyes and listens, to the silence, to the faint hum of the world awakening without her. In that moment there is no crown, no throne, no betrayal. There is only a woman, alone before God, accepting her fate with quiet grace. Outside, the bells begin to toll the hour. 4 in the morning. Soon, they will come for her. Her ladies cling to one another, unable to speak. Anne stands, steady and unshaken. She folds her hands and looks toward the candle one last time. The wax has nearly burned away. The flame bends low, fighting to stay alive. It reminds her of herself, once bright, now fading, but still holding its light to the end. She bows her head and whispers her final prayer. It is not for mercy. It is not for glory. It is for peace, for the king, for her child, for England, and perhaps for her own soul. When the guards arrive, they find her calm, her face serene. She asks them gently to wait until her prayer is finished. Then she rises, takes one last look around the small, cold room, and smiles. It is not a smile of fear or defiance. It is the smile of someone who has already forgiven the world. She leaves behind her Bible, still open on the floor. The candle beside it finally gives out. A wisp of smoke curls upward and disappears into the air, like a soul leaving the body. Outside, dawn spills across the tower. The sky turns gold, the city awakens, and the river glitters in the first light of day. Anne walks slowly toward the scaffold, her head held high. She does not look back. The crowd will see only a queen going to her death. But history will remember something greater, a woman who met her end not with fear, but with faith. In the tower chamber she leaves behind, the wax hardens, the air is still, and though the candle has died, the scent of its smoke lingers, sweet, faint, unyielding, like her memory, like her name, the candle and the crown, one fading, the other forever tarnished. But in that quiet night, Anne Boleyn's light burned brighter than both. The palace is silent, only the rain speaks, soft, steady, and endless. It slides down the tall windows of Whitehall like tears, blurring the world outside. Inside, the king cannot sleep. Henry VIII sits alone beside the dying fire. The logs crackle, their glow fading to ash. The air is thick with smoke and silence. His hands tremble slightly as he stares into the flames, seeing not the fire, but her face. Anne's face, the woman who once filled his world with laughter, the woman who will die when the sun rises. He told himself it was justice, that she had betrayed him, that the kingdom demanded her death. But the deeper the night grows, the quieter those lies become. The crackle of the fire turns into the whisper of her voice, the one that used to calm his anger. He can almost hear her laugh echoing in the halls, faint and distant, like a ghost made of sound. He closes his eyes, but she is still there. Her eyes, dark and bright at once, the way they looked at him, not as a king, but as a man. The clock strikes midnight. Henry looks up sharply, startled by the sound. Each bell toll feels like a heartbeat, heavy, deliberate, counting down to dawn. Outside his chamber door, the guards shift their weight. No one dares to enter. They can hear him pacing, the heavy steps of a man fighting something larger than himself. Guilt has found him, and it will not let him rest. He remembers the first time he saw her, the way the light hit her hair, the way her words challenged him, bold, clever, alive. He had been a king surrounded by obedience. She was the first to make him feel seen. He remembers her hands on the Bible, swearing she was innocent, her tears not of fear, but of disbelief, as though she could not imagine that love could turn so cruel. He tries to bury the image, but it rises again, sharper this time. Her voice, her calmness, her prayer for him. Henry moves toward the window. The night outside is endless. He sees the faint glow of the tower in the distance, a small shadow against the rain. That is where she sleeps tonight. He imagines her kneeling by candlelight, whispering the words of her faith. He imagines her forgiving him. The thought makes his throat tighten. He mutters to himself, trying to crush the feeling. She was guilty. She had to be. But the words sound weak, hollow, even to him. The fire pops, scattering sparks. He sits again, staring into them like a man looking for signs in ashes. He has built his life on control, of men, of nations, of God himself. But tonight even the fire disobeys him. It dims no matter how many logs he adds. The room grows darker. His mind drifts to the moments before everything began to fall apart. The rumors, the cold looks at court, the whispers that turned love into suspicion. He remembers her eyes the day he signed the order. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply looked at him, with something that cut deeper than anger. Pity. She pitied him. A gust of wind slams the shutters open. The rain hits his face, cold and sudden. For a brief moment, he thinks he hears her voice in the storm. "Henry." It's nothing. Only the wind. But his chest tightens as though the name had been spoken aloud. He steps back from the window, breathing hard. The King of England, conqueror of hearts and thrones, frightened by a whisper. He laughs under his breath, bitter and hollow. Then he turns back toward the fire, only to find it nearly dead. The last flame flickers weakly, mirroring his soul. He pours himself wine, but does not drink. His hand hovers above the cup, shaking. He remembers the days of passion, the stolen glances, the letters, the promises written in secret. He remembers how he once believed God himself had brought her to him. Now he wonders if it was the devil instead. He thinks of her child, Elizabeth, the little girl with her mother's eyes. He wonders if she will remember her, if she will remember him as the man who killed her mother. The thought crushes him. He grips the edge of the table until his knuckles whiten. For the first time in years, the king prays. Not aloud, not to be heard, but deep inside where pride cannot reach. He begs for forgiveness, from God, from her, from himself. But the silence that follows is unbearable. No sign, no comfort, only rain. He rises suddenly, throwing his cup against the wall. Wine splashes across the stone like blood. The sound startles the guards outside, but none dare to enter. Henry sinks into his chair again, exhausted. His eyes drift toward the shadows that gather at the edges of the room, and in one of them, he swears he sees her. Not as she was in life, proud and radiant, but calm, almost peaceful. Her eyes soft, full of something that should not exist between them anymore. Forgiveness. He blinks and she is gone. But the air feels different now, heavier, sacred somehow. He presses his hand against his chest, as if to hold something breaking inside. He does not cry. He cannot. Kings do not weep. But his breathing slows, uneven and quiet. Outside, dawn begins to pale the sky. The first hint of morning seeps through the rain. Soon the tower will stir. The axe will be sharpened. The crowd will gather. The queen will walk to her death. And the king, the man who ordered it, will still be here, alone in his dark room, surrounded by ghosts. He looks once more toward the distant tower. His lips move silently. No one will ever know what he says. Some say it was a curse. Others say it was her name. But history remembers what came after, a king who once ruled with fire and who died haunted by the smoke of his own sins. As the first light touches the palace walls, the rain finally stops. The clouds drift away, leaving behind a fragile silence. Henry stares into the gray morning, hollow-eyed. He knows that once she is gone, nothing will fill the space she leaves behind. Not crowns, not victories, not new queens. Her ghost will remain, not in the halls, but in him. In the quiet moments before dawn, in every breath that reminds him he once destroyed the only person who truly loved him. The fire dies, the air cools, and the king, surrounded by everything he ever wanted, feels utterly alone. Her forgiveness, the thing he could never ask for, becomes his punishment. The night has ended. But for Henry, it will never be over. The sky was the color of pale steel. No birds sang. Only the faint toll of a distant bell moved through the mist, slow, sorrowful, final. Inside the Tower of London, Anne Boleyn stood before a small mirror, her reflection flickering in the candlelight. The wax had nearly melted away. Each drop that fell to the table sounded like time itself, slipping away. Her hands were calm, her eyes clear, unbroken. Outside, the soldiers waited. The blade was ready. The crowd was already gathering, restless in the morning chill. Anne turned toward the small window, the one that faced east. A faint stripe of gold touched the sky, the first light of her last day. She whispered softly, almost smiling. So this is the dawn. The courtyard smelled of wet earth and iron. The scaffold stood tall, draped in black cloth. A single French executioner waited beside it, silent and still. As Anne stepped out, the air seemed to change. Even the ravens paused in their circling. She wore a gray gown with a crimson cloak. Her hair, hidden beneath a white coif, framed a face that looked strangely peaceful. Too peaceful for a queen condemned. Witnesses later said she moved as if going to her wedding. And in a way, she was. A wedding to eternity, where no king could command her again. The guards flanked her sides. The wood creaked beneath her feet. Some in the crowd turned away, unable to look. Others leaned forward, drawn by a strange, terrible reverence. Anne's gaze lifted to the sky, not defiant, but steady, as if she were already beyond them all. When she reached the top of the scaffold, she asked for permission to speak. Her voice carried through the cold morning air, soft but clear enough for every soul to hear. "I do not come here to accuse anyone," she began, "nor do I say that I have been wronged. But I pray God will save the king and grant him long life, for he has been good to me." Those who heard it later said her words did not sound rehearsed. They sounded real, a forgiveness too gentle for the world that betrayed her. Her ladies wept silently behind her. Anne turned to them, handing over a small prayer book, and her last earthly possession, a ring once given by the man who now sent her to die. "Do not weep," she told them. "I am at peace." Then she knelt upon the straw, folding her hands. The crowd stilled. Even the wind seemed to stop. Anne closed her eyes. Her lips began to move. "O Lord Jesus Christ," she whispered, "receive my spirit." Her voice trembled for the first time, not in fear, but in release, as if she were letting go of the weight of the crown, the court, and the cruel games that had broken her. "I forgive all who have wronged me," she continued, "and I pray that you forgive them too, even the king." Her final words rose softly into the air, carried away on the breath of morning. It was said that the executioner himself lowered his sword in respect. He waited for her sign, the moment she would lift her eyes and signal she was ready. But before that came, she leaned forward slightly. Her lips moved once more. A whisper, faint, almost soundless. No one heard it clearly. Some said it was a prayer. Others swore she spoke a name, perhaps her daughter's. But whatever it was, it seemed to stop time itself. A flash of light, a rush of air, and then silence. No scream, no cry. Only the soft sound of the sword cutting through the morning. Her body fell forward, her head rolled gently into the straw. For a moment no one moved. Even the executioner froze, eyes wide, as though realizing he had just ended something far greater than a life. And then, from somewhere in the crowd, a woman's voice broke the silence. "God save the Queen." It was a cry of sorrow, not loyalty. A farewell to a spirit that would not die quietly. When it was over, the guards carried her body into a small chapel nearby. No royal ceremony, no coffin of gold, only a wooden box, meant for arrows, where England's former queen was laid to rest. The straw still carried her blood. The candle beside her bed was found still burning when her maids returned to her cell. They said the flame did not go out until nightfall, as if it refused to die before she was gone. Back in the palace, Henry VIII was already making plans for his new queen. But those who saw him that day claimed he looked hollow, as if something had been carved out of him and could never return. He never spoke her name again. Not once. But history would not stay silent. For years, whispers spread through the court that Anne's spirit walked the tower at night, searching for the daughter she never saw grow. Some said they could still hear her footsteps echo on the scaffold at dawn. Others swore they heard her final whisper in the wind, a prayer for forgiveness, or perhaps a mother's goodbye. The tower remains still today. Tourists pass through its gates, unaware of how much sorrow its stones have heard. But when the light of dawn touches its walls, that same pale gold of Anne's final morning, you can almost feel her presence, not in anger, not in revenge, but in forgiveness. A quiet reminder that grace can outlive cruelty, that even in her final breath, Anne Boleyn chose compassion over hatred, And though history remembers her as a queen who fell, she left behind something no blade could cut, a whisper that still moves through time, a whisper that says, "I forgive." The tower is quiet now. The crowd has gone. Only the wind moves between the stones, soft, whispering, almost human. The scaffold stands empty, washed by the rain that began not long after dawn. It said the sky wept that morning, not in thunder, just a quiet, endless drizzle. A single white feather drifts across the courtyard, landing where Anne Boleyn's head once fell. And for a moment, it seems like the world itself holds its breath. The queen is gone, but silence has taken her place. Inside Whitehall Palace, King Henry VIII sits alone. The room is dark, though the sun still rises outside his window. He does not eat. He does not speak. Those who serve him know better than to ask questions. They move quietly, terrified of the mood that has settled over their king. On his desk lies a single piece of parchment, Anne's death warrant. His signature still glistens faintly in the candlelight, as if written only hours ago. Henry stares at it for a long time, but he cannot look away. For years he had wanted peace, freedom from the turmoil, the doubt, the whispers of betrayal. Now that peace has come, but it feels like ashes in his hands. He had promised himself that her death would bring him rest. Instead, every silence feels heavier. Every prayer feels unanswered. At night, he dreams of her, not as the queen he condemned, but as the woman who once laughed beside him, the woman who had eyes like fire, who dared to tell him the truth when no one else would. He wakes before dawn, covered in sweat, her voice echoing faintly in his mind, a whisper, something he can't quite remember. Outside the palace, the world forgets quickly. The markets reopen. The gossip turns to his next marriage, Jane Seymour, quiet and obedient, the opposite of the queen who had died. The court dresses in new colors. The music begins again. But beneath it all, something feels colder. It's as if the laughter of the palace has lost its soul. Anne's friends are gone, exiled or silent, too afraid to speak her name. Her enemies thrive, pretending piety as they feast under new banners. But in the quiet corners of the kingdom, people still whisper. Some say they saw a strange light over the tower that night. Others claim that when the bell tolled the next morning, it sounded cracked, as though it too had mourned her. Far from the court, a small girl with red gold hair plays in a garden. Her name is Elizabeth. She is too young to understand what she's lost. She doesn't remember her mother's face, only a soft lullaby, a scent of rose and ink. But those who watch her grow say she has her mother's eyes, bright, sharp, unafraid. When she speaks, her voice carries that same calm certainty, that same quiet fire. Years will pass before the world realizes what this child will become. For now, she is only a forgotten princess, the daughter of a disgraced queen. But history, it seems, is patient. And somewhere, Anne's final whisper still moves through the air, unseen, unbroken, finding its way to her child. Henry cannot escape the silence. When he walks the corridors at night, he feels watched. Sometimes he hears footsteps behind him, soft, measured, like the sound of a woman walking toward her fate. Other times he hears a faint breath near his ear, a whisper that fades before he can understand it. The servants say he grows pale in those moments. They say he no longer looks like a man, but like a soul being haunted by his own crown. One night, he orders the tower's scaffold burned. He claims it is to make room for new construction. But everyone knows the truth. He cannot bear to see the place where she died. And yet, no fire can erase her memory. For Anne's story does not end with her death. It grows, through legend, through whispers, through the child who will one day rule the world he tried to control. Years drift by like falling leaves. Henry marries again, and again, and again. Each new wife carries the ghost of the one who came before. But none laugh like Anne did. None challenge him with eyes that burn like truth. His body grows heavier, his spirit dimmer. He begins to avoid mirrors, as if afraid of what he'll see staring back. And when the priests speak of mercy, he lowers his head, unable to listen. The man who silenced a queen now lives trapped in his own silence, a prison of his making. Then, years later, when the old king is gone and buried, the daughter he left behind rises to the throne. Elizabeth, the child once forgotten, becomes England's greatest monarch. The world will call her Gloriana, the Virgin Queen, the ruler of a golden age. But those who look closer, those who watch her eyes when she stands before her people, see something more, a memory, a promise. She carries her mother's strength, her mother's courage, and perhaps her mother's forgiveness. Because when Elizabeth speaks, her words are not born of bitterness, they are born of grace. The same grace that Anne showed in her final moments, when she forgave the man who destroyed her. Centuries have passed since that morning on the scaffold, but the whisper has never truly faded. Some say it can still be heard at dawn, echoing through the tower walls, soft like breath over stone. Others say it lives in the quiet strength of every woman who dares to stand tall in a world that would rather see her fall. Anne Boleyn's story began as tragedy, but it became something greater, a hymn of faith, courage, and forgiveness that outlived the crown itself. Even now, her silence speaks louder than any king's command. And if you listen closely in the hush before morning, you might still hear it. That final whisper, carried across centuries, through fire, through blood, through time itself. Not a cry of pain, not a curse, just a single word that history will never silence. Forgive.